The massive Valkyrian ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. One moment the orbital monitor showed nothing but satellites and space debris. The next 7 enormous vessels hovered above major cities across the globe. Panic spread for the first 48 hours until the aliens finally made contact. "We come in peace and friendship," said the blue-skinned alien who called himself Fleet Commander Artax. His message played on every screen worldwide. The Valkyrian Confederation wishes to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. In Washington, D.C., President Frank Howard met with his crisis team. "Do we believe them?" he asked the room full of military officers and scientists. "Their weapons could have destroyed us already if that was their plan," said General Patricia Duncan. "I think we should proceed with caution but engage." Within days, the world's governments agreed to host a delegation. The Valkyrians chose a neutral meeting ground in Geneva, Switzerland. Alan and Susan Carson, both respected linguists from Boston University, were among the specialists called to help with communications. "I don't like leaving the kids," Susan said as they packed their bags. Alan looked at their 8-year-old twins playing in the yard. Eric was building a complex structure with blocks while his sister Lily read a book about stars. "Mom will take good care of them. This is the chance of a lifetime. Sue, we'll help humanity talk to aliens." What the Carsons and Earth's leaders didn't know was that not all Valkyrians shared Commander Artax's peaceful intentions. Deep within the largest ship, General Morvac stared at ancient texts displayed on a holographic screen. The symbols showed humanoid figures surrounded by energy fields. Another image showed the same figures causing destruction across multiple worlds. "The dormant ones," he muttered, just as the prophecies described. His aide, Lieutenant Kirax, approached cautiously. "Sir, the research team is ready, but Commander Artax has forbidden any action against the humans." Morvax's scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Artax is a diplomat. I am a protector of our people. These humans match every description in our ancient warnings. We must understand their capabilities before they understand themselves." He pressed a button, revealing a detailed plan. 50 specimens, young ones whose abilities have not yet manifested. We will collect them during the cultural exchange events. The parents will be distracted, and our technology can bypass their primitive security. 3 days later, the Carsons were impressed by the Valkyrians at the Geneva summit. The aliens shared information about their culture, their home planets, and their advanced technology. They seemed so genuine. Susan whispered to Alan during a presentation on Valkyrian history. Back in Boston, the twins were visiting the Children's Science Museum with their grandmother, Jan. The museum had set up a special exhibit about space to celebrate the alien contact. Dozens of children explored interactive displays about stars and planets. No one noticed the subtle shimmer in the air near the exit doors, nor the tiny devices placed around the exhibit hall. At precisely 2:17 p.m., 50 children across the globe, including Eric and Lily Carson, vanished in brief flashes of light that most humans didn't even see. Jane Carson turned away from an exhibit on Mars to check on her grandchildren. Eric, Lily, the space where they had been standing seconds ago was empty. She looked around, thinking they had wandered to another display. Kids. Within an hour, reports flooded in from Tokyo, London, Nairobi, Sydney, and 24 other cities. Children had disappeared without a trace. In Geneva, the diplomatic meeting was interrupted as phones began ringing. Alan watched in confusion as government officials hurried from the room. Then his own phone vibrated. He answered and heard his mother's hysterical voice. "They're gone. The twins are gone." Susan grabbed his arm, seeing the color drain from his face. "What's wrong?" Alan looked up at the Valkyrian delegation. Commander Artax was speaking with his own staff, looking equally confused. But Alan noticed one Valkyrian in the back of the room, wearing a military uniform distinct from the others. For just a moment, their eyes met, and Alan saw something that chilled him to the bone. Knowledge, purpose, satisfaction. Across the globe, 50 families realized their children had vanished, and no one yet understood that the fate of 2 species now hung in the balance. Captain Olivia Mitchell had not slept in 36 hours. The walls of the Earth Defense Force Command Center were covered with photos of missing children and maps showing where they had disappeared from. 50 children, all between the ages of 6 and 10, vanished at exactly the same moment across the globe. "Show me the museum footage again," she told her team. The large screen displayed security camera footage from the Boston Children's Science Museum. She watched as Eric and Lily Carson stood near a model of Saturn. Then came a barely visible flash, and the children were gone. "Freeze and enhance," she said. The tech zoomed in on a small device attached to the wall behind where the children had been standing. "There. That's not museum equipment." Similar devices have been found at every location where children disappeared. They weren't human technology. Across town, Alan and Susan Carson sat in their empty house surrounded by FBI agents and scientists. They had returned from Geneva immediately after learning about their children. "We need to know everything the aliens told you," said Agent Rick Gordon. "Any clue about their intentions or capabilities?" Susan shook her head. "They shared cultural information, scientific knowledge. Nothing that suggested they would take our children." The phone rang. Alan answered and heard Captain Mitchell's voice. "Mr. Carson, we found something. The devices left behind at the abduction sites are definitely Valkyrian. We have video proof of their agents planting them before the children vanished." Within hours, diplomatic channels erupted with accusations. President Howard demanded answers from Commander Artax in an emergency video conference. "These are serious allegations," said Artax, his blue skin paling to a lighter shade. "I assure you, I authorized no such action." "Then explain the Valkyrian technology found at every abduction site," demanded the president. Artax turned to his staff. "Bring me all information about these devices immediately." When his aides returned with the data, Artax's expression changed from confusion to horror. The technology signature belonged to the Military Research Division, General Morvax's department. Aboard the largest Valkyrian ship, General Morvax watched as Chief Scientist Zulara examined the human children. They were kept in separate rooms with transparent walls, monitored by various sensors. The children appeared unharmed but frightened. "Their neural patterns are fascinating," said Zulara. "Unlike anything in our database of known species." Morvax nodded. The ancient texts were correct. These humans have dormant abilities locked within their genetic code. Zulara moved to the chamber holding Eric Carson. The boy sat in the corner, watching the aliens with wary eyes. "This one shows unusual readings. His brain activity spikes when he feels threatened." "Begin the tests," ordered Morvax. "But be careful. We need to understand their capabilities without triggering them prematurely." In another chamber, Lily Carson had stopped crying and started observing. She noticed how the door mechanisms worked, how the aliens communicated with their devices. She was learning. Back on the command ship, Commander Artax confronted his military general. "You took human children without authorization. This violates every diplomatic protocol we established." Morvax stood firm. "I have authorization from sources higher than you, Commander. The High Command approved this research when I presented the evidence." "What evidence?" demanded Artax. Morvax activated a holographic display showing ancient Valkyrian texts. "These humans match the description of the dormant ones from our most sacred prophecies, a species with the potential to develop abilities that could threaten the galactic order." Artax stared at the images. "These are myths, not military intelligence." "The High Command disagrees," said Morvax. "The tests will continue." On Earth, Captain Mitchell met with the Carsons and other parents of missing children. "We have proof the Valkyrians took your children," she told them. "And we believe Commander Artax may not have been aware of the plan." Susan gripped Alan's hand. "That means there's division among them. We can use that." At Boston University, Dr. Kyle Bennett reviewed brain scans from people who reported strange dreams since the Valkyrian arrival. As a friend of the Carson family, he had volunteered to help in any way he could. The patterns were unusual. Something about the alien presence was affecting human brain activity, and the most significant changes appeared in children's scans. In his research lab, Bennett looked at the most recent data and whispered, "My God, we're changing." Aboard the Valkyrian ship, Eric Carson stared at a small toy the aliens had given him to test his cognitive abilities. As his fear turned to anger, the toy began to vibrate slightly. None of the monitoring devices detected the brief surge of energy that passed through the boy's mind. None except his twin sister, Lily, who felt it from her chamber across the lab. For the first time since their abduction, she smiled. General Morvac stood before the Valkyrian High Command, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the circular chamber. 6 elderly Valkyrians watched him from their elevated seats, their skin a deeper blue than younger members of their species. "Explain your actions, General," said the first elder. "Taking children from another species is forbidden without full council approval." Morvax activated a holographic display. "These humans are not what they appear to be. Our ancient texts speak of the dormant ones, beings who appear primitive but carry within them the seeds of immense power." The display showed brain scans of the human children compared to normal Valkyrian patterns. The differences were striking. These neural pathways suggest potential abilities far beyond what humans currently display, Morvax continued. Telepathy, energy manipulation, matter transformation, all dormant, waiting to emerge during their evolution. The second elder leaned forward. "And you believe these humans are the dormant ones from our ancient warnings?" "I am certain," Morvax replied. "If we wait until they naturally evolve these abilities, it could mean the end of Valkyrian influence in the galaxy. We must understand their capabilities now, while we still can." The elders conferred quietly before the first elder spoke again. "Your research may continue, but with absolute secrecy. Commander Artax must handle the diplomatic crisis your actions have created." Back on Earth, Dr. Kyle Bennett hunched over his computer in his university lab. Around him were brain scans from hundreds of humans who had experienced unusual dreams or sensations since the Valkyrian arrival. "It's like their presence triggered something in us," he muttered to himself. Alan Carson sat across from him, eyes red from sleepless nights. "Can any of this help us find the children?" Bennett pointed to a particular scan. "This is your brain from last year's medical checkup." He pulled up another image. "This is from yesterday. Notice these areas becoming more active. I'm seeing this pattern in many people, but it's strongest in parents of the missing children." "What does it mean?" Alan asked. "I think you're developing some kind of connection. The Valkyrians may have triggered an evolutionary response in humans." Bennett hesitated. "Alan, I need to show you something else." He led Alan to another part of the lab where Captain Mitchell waited with several government officials. "Dr. Bennett discovered something," Mitchell explained. "Show him." Bennett pulled a cloth off a table, revealing what looked like ancient cave paintings. These were found in caves across 5 continents. They're thousands of years old, but they all showed the same thing. The paintings depicted human-like figures surrounded by energy patterns. Some showed the figures manipulating objects without touching them. Others showed them communicating through lines connecting their heads. "They look like they have." Alan trailed off. "Powers," Bennett finished. "Mental abilities we don't currently possess. And look at this one." He pointed to a painting showing blue figures approaching the humans. "It's like they predicted the Valkyrians would come." On the Valkyrian research vessel, Chief Scientist Zulara reviewed the latest test results with growing concern. The children were showing increasing resistance to the standard tests. Some refused food. Others stared blankly at the walls. But the brain activity of each child was intensifying. She focused on Eric Carson's readings. When threatened or frightened, his neural patterns shifted dramatically. During one test, a monitoring device near his chamber had malfunctioned for no apparent reason. Lily Carson was even more concerning. Though she appeared cooperative, Zulara noticed she was systematically learning about Valkyrian technology and language. The girl absorbed information at an alarming rate. Zulara entered Morvax's office, her steps hesitant. "General, I need to report something troubling." "Proceed," he said without looking up from his data. "The tests aren't just measuring dormant abilities. They appear to be accelerating their development. The stress of captivity is triggering changes in the children." This caught Morvax's attention. How significant. If these trends continue, some children may manifest abilities within days rather than generations. Zulara paused. "Sir, if these humans truly are the dormant ones, forcing their evolution could be dangerous. Or it could give us the advantage of knowing their capabilities before they'd fully understand them," Morvax countered. In his chamber, Eric Carson sat cross-legged on the floor. His eyes were closed, but behind his eyelids, something was happening. A faint blue light pulsed around his fingertips. 3 chambers away, Lily opened her eyes at exactly the same moment her brother's fingers began to glow. She could feel him in her mind, and she knew that soon they would not be helpless anymore. Eric Carson woke to the sound of alarms. The lights in his chamber flashed red, and he could hear the Valkyrian scientists speaking rapidly outside. Something had happened during the night. He looked down at his hands and remembered the strange dream. In it, he had reached out with his mind and touched something, a power source within the ship. He had pulled at it, just a little, just to see if he could. The door to his chamber slid open, and 3 Valkyrians entered. 2 were guards with weapons. The third was the female scientist he had come to recognize, Zulara. "What happened to the power systems?" she asked him directly. Eric blinked. "I don't know." Zulara checked a device on her wrist. "Your neural patterns spiked during the night. At the exact moment our primary energy core experienced a fluctuation." Eric said nothing, but inside, he felt something new, a sense of strength he hadn't had before. In her separate chamber, Lily sat perfectly still, her eyes closed. She had felt Eric's mind touch the ship's systems. More importantly, she had felt other minds too. The 48 other children spread throughout the research vessel. Each one was changing, just like she and Eric were. Lily opened her eyes when her door slid open. General Morvax himself stood there, watching her with his cold eyes. "Your brother caused a problem last night," he said. "Do you know anything about that?" Lily shook her head. "We're in different rooms. How would I know?" Morvax stepped closer. "Because you twins share a connection. We've measured it in your brain patterns." For the first time, Lily felt afraid of what the aliens knew, but she also felt something else, a growing confidence that they couldn't stop what was happening. On Earth, Dr. Bennett had turned his lab into a command center. Maps on the walls showed cave painting locations. Computer screens displayed brain scans. Captain Mitchell and a team of military personnel worked alongside scientists. Alan and Susan Carson hadn't left the lab in days. They slept on cots when they couldn't stay awake any longer. "I found another connection," Susan said, pointing to an ancient text. "These symbols match ones found in India, Egypt, and Peru. They all describe beings who could move objects with thought and speak across great distances without sound." Dr. Bennett nodded. "Telepathy and telekinesis, the same abilities that are showing up in our brain scans." Alan looked up from his computer. "But why now? Why are these abilities appearing after thousands of years?" "The Valkyrians," Captain Mitchell said. "Something about their presence or their technology is triggering a change in human neurology." Dr. Bennett pulled up a new scan on the main screen. "This is from a volunteer who lives near where the main Valkyrian ship is hovering. Her brain is showing the most advanced changes we've seen." "What does this mean for our children?" Susan asked, her voice breaking. No one had an answer. Aboard the research vessel, Chief Scientist Zulara entered a secure room where Commander Artax waited. She had requested this secret meeting at great risk to herself. "Commander, I had to warn you," she said quickly. General Morvax has made a terrible mistake. Taking the children, Artax asked. No, experimenting on them. Zulara handed him a datapad. These readings show accelerated neurological development in all 50 subjects. The tests aren't just measuring dormant abilities, they are triggering them. Artax studied the data. Is this dangerous? According to the ancient texts, the dormant ones were meant to evolve slowly, over thousands of years. Their abilities would develop alongside their wisdom and moral understanding. Zulara's voice shook slightly. But we're forcing that evolution to happen in days. Without the wisdom to control these powers, what could happen? Artax demanded. The texts call it the awakening. If it happens too quickly, the dormant ones transform into something else. Something driven by fear and trauma rather than understanding. In his chamber, Eric felt a sudden surge of energy in his mind. Across the room, a metal cup rose slowly into the air. He wasn't touching it. He was only thinking about it moving. At the same moment, 49 other children made similar discoveries. A toy floated. A light switched on without being touched. A locked door slid open. And in the ship's main computer room, Lily's consciousness, somehow projected outside her body, silently moved through the data systems, learning everything she could about the Valkyrians and their fears. Eric sat in the center of his chamber, eyes closed. He no longer feared the Valkyrians watching him through the transparent walls. Instead, he focused on the new sensation in his mind, a web of connections spreading outward. He could feel his sister Lily most strongly, but beyond her, he sensed the other children too. Can you hear me? He thought, directing the question to all of them. One by one, their minds answered. Some were scared, others were angry. All were changing, just like him. We need to get home, he projected. Together, we might be strong enough. Across the research vessel, the other children received his message. A 7-year-old boy from Japan closed his eyes and joined the mental link. A 9-year-old girl from Kenya added her strength. Soon, all 50 children were connected in a network that the Valkyrians couldn't detect. In the main laboratory, General Morvax reviewed the latest test results with growing excitement. Their abilities are developing faster than predicted, he told his staff. Subject 23 moved objects without contact. Subject 17 interfaced with our computer systems somehow. Several others show signs of telepathy. Chief Scientist Zulara looked worried. Sir, these developments match the warning signs described in the ancient texts. If we continue pushing them, we will understand their full capabilities before they do, Morvax interrupted. Double the testing frequency. I want results within the next cycle. As he spoke, the lights flickered briefly. No one noticed the security cameras turning slightly, as if moved by invisible hands. Lily Carson lay on her bed, appearing to sleep. But her mind was far away, moving through the ship's systems. She had learned the Valkyrian language by accessing their educational databases. She understood their technology by watching engineers through security feeds. Most importantly, she had found the location of a shuttle bay near the research section. I know how we can escape, she sent through the mental link to her brother and the others. But we need a distraction. Back on Earth, Alan Carson jolted awake from a vivid dream. In it, he had seen Eric and Lily surrounded by strange blue light. They had spoken to him, but not with words, with thoughts. They're alive, he gasped, startling Susan, who dozed in a chair nearby. What? Did you hear something? She asked. Before Alan could answer, Dr. Bennett rushed into the room, holding a printout. The readings are off the charts. Every person we're monitoring is showing massive neural activity spikes, especially parents of the missing children. Captain Mitchell followed him in. We're getting reports worldwide. People are experiencing visions, dreams about the children. Some claim they can hear thoughts. It's spreading, Bennett said. Whatever is happening to the children is affecting people here too. Above them, the Valkyrian ship shifted position. Several smaller vessels detached from the main fleet and moved to new locations around the globe. On the research vessel, Commander Artax made his decision. After reviewing Zulara's evidence, he couldn't allow Morvax to continue. He gathered trusted officers in his private quarters. General Morvax has violated our most sacred laws, he told them. The human children must be returned immediately. The general has support from the High Command, one officer warned. Based on incomplete information, Artax replied. They don't know what Zulara has discovered. That forcing these abilities to emerge could create something our ancestors feared enough to record warnings about. The officers agreed to help. They would move at the next shift change. But the children were already making their move. Eric had gathered enough strength to disable the force field around his chamber. Across the laboratory section, other children were doing the same. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. General Morvax rushed to the laboratory with armed guards. Secure the subjects. Don't let them communicate with each other. Too late. The mental network was already established. As guards approached Eric's now open chamber, objects began flying across the room. Medical instruments, chairs, even parts of the walls torn free by invisible forces. In her chamber, Lily opened her eyes, which now glowed with blue light. The door slid open without her touching it. Two guards raised their weapons, but found themselves frozen in place, unable to move. Throughout the ship, the other children broke free of their rooms. Some moved objects with their minds. Others controlled the ship's systems. A few seemed to generate energy from their hands. The shuttle bay is level 5, section 3. Lily's voice echoed in all their minds. Move together. Protect each other. As the children gathered in the corridors, General Morvax ordered emergency protocols. Use neural suppressants if necessary. We cannot let them leave. But when his soldiers tried to use the suppressants, they discovered a terrible truth. The children had evolved beyond their effectiveness. Chaos erupted aboard the Valkyrian research vessel. Alarms blared as 50 children moved through the corridors, their new abilities protecting them from the guards. Eric Carson led one group, using his telekinetic powers to push away anyone who tried to stop them. Lily guided them all through the mental network, having memorized the ship's layout. The shuttle bay is 2 levels down, she directed them. We need to hurry. General Morvax watched the security feeds in horror. The children were not just escaping. They were evolving before his eyes. Some now had physical changes, faint blue light under their skin, eyes that glowed when they used their powers, movements too quick for normal humans. Lock down all escape routes, he ordered. Activate the emergency containment field. A lieutenant looked up nervously. Sir, the containment systems are not responding. Something is blocking our access. In another part of the ship, Commander Artax and his loyal officers moved quickly through the corridors. They had intended to help free the children, only to discover the children had freed themselves. Find General Morvax, Artax ordered. We must stop him before he makes this worse. As the commander rounded a corner, he came face to face with Eric Carson and 20 other children. The boy's eyes glowed with blue light, and Artax felt an invisible force hold him in place. We just want to go home, Eric said, his voice strangely calm for a child in such danger. Artax raised his hand slowly. I want to help you. General Morvax violated our laws by taking you. I was coming to free you. Eric studied the alien's face, then nodded. He's telling the truth, he sent to the other children through their mental link. There's a problem. Lily's voice came through the connection. They've locked down the shuttle bay. I can override it, but I need time. On Earth, something extraordinary was happening. Thousands of people reported strange dreams and sensations. Parents of the missing children experienced it most strongly. In Boston, Alan and Susan Carson woke simultaneously from the same dream. I saw them, Susan gasped. They're trying to escape. Dr. Bennett rushed into their room with new brain scans. Something massive is happening. The neural activity is off the charts, and it's spreading from person to person like a network. Captain Mitchell entered with urgent news. The Valkyrian ships are changing position. We're picking up unusual energy readings from the main research vessel. Aboard that vessel, Lily Carson stood before a computer terminal, her hands hovering above the alien controls. She didn't need to touch them. Her mind connected directly with the ship's systems, bypassing security protocols that would have taken Valkyrian engineers hours to crack. Almost there, she told the others through their link. General Morvax and his remaining loyal guards rushed toward the shuttle bay. We cannot let them leave. If they return to Earth in this state, it will accelerate the awakening of their entire species. When they reached the shuttle bay, they found Commander Artax standing with the children. "Stand down, General," Artax ordered. "This ends now." "You fool," Morvax shouted. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand that you violated our most sacred laws," Artax replied. "These children must be returned home. If they return like this, change, awaken before their time, they will transform their entire species." Morvax raised his weapon. "The texts warned us. The dormant ones must evolve naturally, or they become the ascendant, beings of immense power driven by fear and trauma." Before Artax could respond, the bay doors opened. A shuttle waited inside, its systems already activated by Lily's mental commands. "No," Morvax lunged forward, but was thrown back by Eric's telekinetic push. He crashed against the wall and slid to the floor. Looking up at Artax with horror in his eyes, he screamed, "You took their children. You've destined us all." The children boarded the shuttle quickly. Eric paused at the entrance and turned to Commander Artax. "Thank you for helping us," he said, "but this isn't over." As the shuttle departed, Lily connected to the ship's database one final time. In seconds, she downloaded the entire Valkyrian knowledge repository into her enhanced mind. Their history, their science, their fears. The shuttle sped toward Earth, carrying 50 children who were no longer entirely human. Their bodies continued to change during the journey. Their minds expanded. And through them, a transformation had already begun to spread across their home planet. In his command center, Commander Artax placed General Morvax under arrest. The diplomatic crisis was just beginning, but both aliens knew a far greater challenge was coming. The awakening could not be stopped now. 6 months passed since the children returned to Earth. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The reunion of the 50 children with their families had been both joyful and troubling. Parents discovered their children were profoundly different. Their bodies subtly altered, their minds vastly expanded. Alan and Susan Carson stood in their backyard, watching Eric and Lily. The twins no longer looked entirely human. Their skin had a faint bluish glow in certain light. Their eyes sometimes shimmered when they used their abilities. They moved with unusual grace. "They're going to the gathering today," Alan asked quietly. Susan nodded. "They say it's important. More people are awakening." Across the globe, millions of humans now showed signs of developing abilities. It had started with the families of the abducted children, then spread outward like ripples in a pond. Dr. Bennett had established a research center to study and help those undergoing changes. "The Valkyrians triggered something that was always inside us," Bennett explained during a video conference with world leaders. "The 50 children are acting as catalysts, accelerating what would have been a natural evolutionary step thousands of years in the future." In Boston, a large park had been converted into a gathering place. Hundreds of changed humans met there daily, with the 50 children serving as teachers. Eric and Lily were among the most advanced, their twin connection giving them unique insights. As they walked through the crowd, people reached out to touch them. Some sought healing for the headaches that came with developing abilities. Others wanted guidance on controlling their new powers. Lily stopped and looked up at the sky. "They're coming back," she said simply. High above Earth, a fleet of Valkyrian ships appeared, larger than before, with obvious weapon systems now visible on their hulls. Commander Artax, now Fleet Admiral Artax, stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the blue planet grow larger on the view screen. "Any response to our message?" he asked his communications officer. "Yes, Admiral. They're requesting a meeting on neutral ground. The location is being transmitted now." Behind Artax stood Chief Scientist Zulara, who had been promoted for her ethical stand against General Morvax's project. "The scans confirm it," she said quietly. "The transformation has spread far beyond the original 50 subjects. Millions now show similar neural patterns. Just as the ancient texts predicted," Artax said. "The Ascendant are awakening." On Earth, world leaders gathered nervously. The Valkyrian message had been brief but clear. They wished to establish new diplomatic relations in light of humanity's evolution. Some nations wanted to prepare for war. Others sought peaceful cooperation. At the Carson home, a government car arrived to take Eric and Lily to the meeting site. Alan and Susan hugged their children tightly. "We'll be fine," Eric assured them. "We understand the Valkyrians better than anyone." "We have their entire history in our minds," Lily added. "We know what they fear and why." The meeting took place aboard a specialized vessel positioned in Earth's orbit. Admiral Artax represented the Valkyrians, accompanied by Zulara and other officials. Eric Carson spoke for the changed humans, with Lily beside him and Earth's political leaders behind them. Eric's appearance had changed the most among all the children. His form now seemed to shift subtly, as if physical matter was merely a suggestion rather than a requirement. The blue glow under his skin pulsed with his heartbeat. "We remember who awakened us before our time," Eric said, his voice carrying unusual resonance. "But we also remember who helped bring us home." Artax bowed slightly. "The division in our society continues. Some believe we should destroy Earth before humans become too powerful. Others, like myself and Zulara, advocate for peaceful cooperation. You stand at a crossroads," Lily said, her eyes showing wisdom far beyond her years. "Your ancient texts weren't entirely wrong. We are becoming something new. But what kind of beings we become depends partly on how you choose to treat us now." Eric extended his hand, which glowed with blue energy. "The path of destruction or coexistence is yours to choose. But know this, we are no longer the helpless children you took. We are the guardians of our world now, and we will ensure no species ever suffers what we endured." As if to emphasize his point, the stars visible through the viewport seemed to bend slightly around him. Artax looked at the transformed child before him, remembering General Morvax's warning. "You've destined us all." Perhaps he had, but for destruction or a new beginning remained to be seen. The Admiral took Eric's glowing hand. "Then let us choose wisely together." In homes across Earth, millions of humans felt that moment of contact. A wave of energy passed through the planet as a new chapter in humanity's story began, one that would eventually reach far beyond their single world to the stars themselves.